She saved his life from the flames, and he left her with the scars. In a quiet Portland apartment building, a warning echoes through empty hallways. No man ever stays. Across from single father Adrian Blake lives Evelyn Hart, a powerful CEO hiding behind closed doors and long sleeves, carrying secrets burned into her skin and a belief that love always ends in abandonment. But when a broken pipe forces two strangers into each other's lives, Adrian will face a choice that terrifies her. Will he become another name on the list of men who walked away, or will he be the one who finally proves her wrong? If you're watching from anywhere in the world, drop your city in the comments below. I want to see how far this story travels. And stick around until the end, because what happens between these two will change everything you think you know about second chances. The fluorescent lights in the third-floor hallway of the Evergreen Apartments buzzed with that particular frequency that made Adrian Blake's jaw tighten. He'd been meaning to mention it to building management for weeks, but like most things that weren't directly related to keeping his daughter fed and his bills paid, it had slipped down the endless list of things he'd get to eventually. "Mr. Blake, got a minute?" Adrian paused, his key halfway to the lock of apartment 3B. Behind him stood Warren Mitchell, the building manager, a man in his late 50s whose permanent expression suggested he'd seen every possible way tenants could disappoint him and was just waiting for the next inevitable catastrophe. "Sure, Warren. What's up?" The older man glanced down the hallway, then back at Adrian, lowering his voice despite the corridor being empty. "You've been here, what, 3 months now?" "About that, yeah." Adrian shifted the paper grocery bag in his arms. Inside, a carton of milk was starting to sweat condensation through the bottom. "Everything okay with the apartment?" "Your place is fine. It's just—" Warren's eyes drifted to the door across the hall. "Apartment 3A. Wanted to give you a heads up about your neighbor." Adrian followed his gaze. In the 3 months since he and Lily had moved in, he'd seen the woman from 3A maybe half a dozen times, always in passing. Dark red hair, usually pulled back. Professional clothes. The kind of person who moved through the world with purpose, like she had somewhere important to be and was already calculating how to make up for lost time. "She causing problems?" Adrian asked, though he couldn't imagine it. She was so quiet he sometimes forgot anyone lived there at all. No, nothing like that." Warren scratched his jaw. "Evelyn Hart. Been here about 4 years. Quiet, pays on time, never complains. Model tenant, really." Adrian waited. There was clearly more coming. "It's just that—" Warren's voice dropped even lower. "Nice woman, don't get me wrong. Keeps to herself mostly. But in those 4 years, I've seen maybe 3 or 4 different guys come around. Boyfriends, I guess. Never lasts long." He shook his head slowly. "No man ever stays. Thought you should know, in case you ever run into her. Seems like the type who might be complicated." The grocery bag was definitely starting to give way now. Adrian could feel the cardboard softening against his forearm. "Warren, I appreciate the neighborhood watch thing, but I've got a 6-year-old and a 50-hour work week. I'm not really in the market for complicated." "Just saying." Warren raised his hands defensively. "You seem like a good guy. Got your daughter to think about. Sometimes it's better to know what you're getting into before you're in too deep." Adrian managed a polite nod and finally got his door open before the milk could stage a dramatic escape. "Thanks for the heads up. Have a good evening." Inside apartment 3B, the familiar chaos of single parenthood greeted him. Lily's backpack had exploded near the door, scattering crayons and crumpled papers across the entryway. Her shoes, which he'd asked her to put in the closet literally every single day for 3 months, sat in the middle of the hallway like tiny landmines waiting for his sock-covered feet. "Lily, I'm home!" He set the groceries on the kitchen counter and began the nightly ritual of transforming scattered ingredients into something resembling dinner. "Hi, Daddy!" His daughter appeared from her bedroom, her blonde hair somehow simultaneously in and escaping from the ponytail he'd managed that morning. She held up a piece of paper covered in what appeared to be a very enthusiastic representation of a cat, or possibly a dog, or a horse having a bad day. "Look what I made." "That's incredible, sweetheart. What is it?" "It's you," Lily beamed with pride. "See? You're fixing a car." Adrian squinted at the drawing. Now that she mentioned it, He could sort of see it. The brown blob was probably meant to be him, and the larger blob with circles might be a vehicle. I love it. Let's put it on the fridge. As Lily carefully selected which magnet would have the honor of displaying her artwork, Adrian started unpacking groceries. His mind drifted back to Warren's warning, and he found himself annoyed by it. The guy meant well, probably, but there was something unsettling about the casual way he'd discussed a tenant's personal life. No man ever stays. What kind of thing was that to say about someone? Besides, it was none of his business. Adrian had exactly zero interest in his neighbor's dating history. His own romantic life had been in cold storage since his ex-wife Jessica had decided that motherhood and marriage were incompatible with her dreams of becoming an influencer in Los Angeles. That had been 4 years ago, when Lily was 2. The divorce papers had arrived 3 months later, along with Jessica's request for him to have full custody because, as she'd put it, she needed to find herself, and couldn't do that while being responsible for a child. He'd been finding himself ever since, too. Mostly he found himself exhausted. "Daddy, can we have spaghetti?" Lily had moved on from her artwork and was now attempting to climb onto a kitchen stool. "How about chicken and rice? How about spaghetti?" Adrian smiled despite himself. His daughter had inherited his stubbornness and her mother's negotiation skills. "How about spaghetti with vegetables?" Lily considered this with the seriousness of a Supreme Court justice weighing constitutional law. "Can the vegetables be small?" "Very small." "Okay." They fell into their evening routine, cooking together, Lily chattering about her day at school while Adrian chopped bell peppers into pieces so minuscule they barely qualified as vegetables anymore. She told him about how her friend Marcus had gotten in trouble for bringing a frog to show and tell, how her teacher Mrs. Patterson had worn the funniest shoes ever, and how she'd learned to spell because, which was super hard, but I did it anyway. After dinner, bath time, and 3 stories, Lily had also inherited her mother's ability to negotiate bedtime routines. Adrian finally collapsed onto his second-hand couch. The apartment was quiet except for the ambient city sounds filtering through the walls, distant traffic, someone's television, the building's old pipes groaning as water moved through them. He thought about Warren's words again and felt that same twist of irritation. No man ever stays. There was a cruelty in reducing someone's life to a piece of hallway gossip and summarizing years of private heartbreak into a cautionary tale for new tenants. Through the wall that separated his apartment from 3A, he heard the faint sound of a door opening and closing. His neighbor was home. He checked his watch, 9:47 p.m. Long day at the office, wherever she worked. He found himself wondering what kind of job kept someone out that late on a Tuesday, then reminded himself that it was, again, none of his business. Adrian grabbed his laptop and spent the next hour reviewing invoices from the garage. He'd been working at Morrison's Auto Repair for 7 years, ever since he'd aged out of the foster care system at 18 and needed a job that came with real skills. Old man Morrison had taken a chance on him, taught him everything from basic oil changes to complex engine diagnostics. When Morrison retired 3 years ago, he'd sold the business to a corporate chain, but Adrian had stayed on. The pay was decent, the hours were terrible, but it was honest work and it kept a roof over Lily's head. His phone buzzed. A text from his coworker Marcus. "You working Saturday?" "Tony called in sick for his shift." Adrian typed back. "Can't. Got Lily all weekend." "Try Jennings?" "Already asked. He's got a wedding. You're my last hope, Obi-Wan." Adrian smiled at the reference. "Sorry, man. Single dad life wins this round." "Respect. See you Monday." He closed the laptop and sat in the quiet for a moment. This was his life now. Work, Lily, sleep, repeat. It wasn't the life he'd imagined when he was younger, back when he'd had vague dreams of maybe opening his own garage someday, of having a family that looked like the ones in commercials, happy, whole, uncomplicated. But it was a good life, a real one. He had a daughter who thought his biggest accomplishment was making spaghetti with very small vegetables, and honestly, there were worse legacies. The next morning arrived too early, as mornings always did. Adrian went through the practice choreography of getting Lily ready for school. Breakfast, teeth, clothes, hair, a daily battle he was slowly losing. Backpack, shoes, out the door. They made it to the building's front entrance with 3 minutes to spare before the school bus arrived. "Daddy, look!" Lily pointed across the street. A sleek black sedan was pulling away from the curb. Through the tinted rear window, Adrian caught a glimpse of dark red hair. "That's the lady from across the hall," Lily said matter-of-factly. "She has pretty hair." "You've seen her?" "Sometimes. She always looks sad, though." Adrian glanced down at his daughter. "What makes you think she looks sad?" Lily shrugged with the unself-conscious wisdom of 6-year-olds. "Her eyes, they're sad eyes, like when you look at pictures of Mommy." The observation hit harder than it should have. Adrian cleared his throat. "The bus is coming. You got everything?" The yellow school bus rumbled to a stop, and Lily climbed aboard, waving enthusiastically from her window seat as the bus pulled away. Adrian waved back until it disappeared around the corner, then headed to his own car, a 15-year-old Honda Civic that he kept running through sheer willpower and professional knowledge. The drive to Morrison's took 20 minutes through Portland's morning traffic. He pulled into the garage bay at 7:58 a.m., right on time for his 8 o'clock shift. The familiar smell of motor oil and metal welcomed him like an old friend. "Blake, got a transmission rebuild waiting for you in Bay 3, Marcus called from across the garage. He was already elbow-deep in an engine, his dark skin gleaming with sweat despite the cool morning air. "Let me get coffee first. I'm still half asleep." "Aren't we all?" The day unfolded in its usual rhythm. Diagnostic checks, oil changes, brake jobs, the occasional complicated repair that required actual thinking. Adrian liked the work. There was something satisfying about taking a machine that didn't function and making it whole again. Problems had solutions. Every noise meant something specific. It wasn't like people, where you could do everything right and still end up alone. During his lunch break, he sat in the garage's small break room and called Lily's school to confirm pickup time. The secretary assured him that yes, they had him down for 3:30 p.m. pickup, and yes, Lily was having a good day, and no, there were no frog-related incidents to report. "You got kids?" Marcus asked, microwaving something that smelled like last night's curry. "Daughter, 6 years old. Man, I don't know how you do it solo. I got 2 and a wife, and I still feel like I'm drowning most days." Adrian smiled. "You just do what needs doing, not like there's an alternative." "Your ex ever try to get back in the picture?" "Jessica? Nah. She sends a card on Lily's birthday, sometimes a gift at Christmas. That's about it." He took a bite of his sandwich. "She's busy finding herself in California." "That's rough, brother." "It is what it is." The afternoon brought a steady stream of vehicles, and Adrian fell into the meditative state that came with familiar work. His hands knew what to do, even when his mind wandered. He thought about Lily's observation that morning, sad eyes. He wondered if his daughter was more perceptive than he gave her credit for, or if she just had that uncanny ability children possess to see through the walls adults built around themselves. At 3:15, he cleaned up his station and headed out to pick up Lily. She bounded out of the school doors with the kinetic energy of a small tornado, immediately launching into a detailed account of everything that had happened in the 6 hours since he'd seen her last. "And then Marcus, not your Marcus, my Marcus, he said that frogs can breathe through their skin. Can you believe that, Daddy? Through their skin." "That's pretty cool," Adrian agreed, helping her buckle into her car seat. "Can I get a frog?" "No." "Can I get half a frog?" "Also no." Back at the Evergreen Apartments, they climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor. Lily had declared elevators boring last week and insisted on taking the stairs despite them living on the 3rd floor. As they reached their landing, the door to apartment 3A opened. Evelyn Hart stepped out, and for the first time, Adrian got a proper look at his neighbor. She was probably in her mid-30s, with deep auburn hair that fell past her shoulders when it wasn't pulled back. Sharp cheekbones, pale skin, and eyes that were indeed tinged with something that might have been sadness, or maybe just exhaustion. She wore a charcoal gray suit that probably cost more than Adrian made in a month, and she moved with the kind of controlled precision that suggested she'd learned to take up exactly as much space as necessary and not a millimeter more. "Hi." Lily waved enthusiastically. Evelyn paused, seemingly surprised to be directly addressed. A small smile crossed her face, brief but genuine. "Hello." "I'm Lily. This is my daddy. We live across the hall." "I've noticed," Evelyn said softly. Her voice had a measured quality, like every word was weighed before release. She glanced at Adrian. "You're the mechanic. Guilty. Adrian Blake. He shifted his work bag to his other shoulder. Sorry if we've been loud. 6-year-olds have one volume setting. You haven't been loud. She hesitated, then added, It's actually nice, hearing life happening nearby. There was something in the way she said it, hearing life happening nearby, that made Adrian think of empty apartments and quiet evenings. Before he could respond, Lily filled the silence. You have pretty hair. It's like fire. Does it ever actually burn? Lily, Adrian warned gently, but Evelyn's smile widened fractionally. No burning, just regular hair, I'm afraid. But thank you. What's your job? Daddy fixes cars. I go to school. School is my job because I have to do homework, and homework is basically work, which makes it a job. That's solid logic, Evelyn acknowledged. I work with hospitals and medical technology. I help them organize their systems. It was a simplified explanation, Adrian suspected. The suit, the late hours, the car service that picked her up every morning. He'd bet money there was more to it than helping hospitals organize. That sounds important, he offered. It can be. Evelyn glanced at her watch, something elegant and minimalist. I should go. I have a meeting. It was nice to officially meet you both. You too, Adrian said. As she walked toward the elevator, Lily tugged on Adrian's sleeve. See? Sad eyes. Inside voice, sweetheart, Adrian murmured, unlocking their door. That evening followed the usual pattern, but Adrian found his attention drifting. Through the shared wall, he could hear the faint sounds of his neighbor's life. Footsteps across hardwood floors, water running, the muted tones of what might have been a phone conversation. Not loud enough to make out words, just enough to confirm that yes, someone lived there, and no, they weren't particularly noisy about it. He wondered about Warren's comment. No man ever stays. What happened to make that the defining narrative of someone's life? What kind of heartbreak did you have to endure before the building manager felt comfortable turning your romantic history into casual hallway conversation? Daddy, you're not listening, Lily's voice cut through his thoughts. Sorry, sweetheart, what were you saying? I said, can we make cookies this weekend? Absolutely, we can make cookies. Even though cookies aren't vegetables? Even though cookies aren't vegetables. Lily grinned and returned to her coloring book, satisfied with this small victory. The week continued its steady march forward. Adrian worked long days at the garage, picked up Lily from school, navigated the endless domestic tasks that kept a household functioning. He saw his neighbor in passing a few more times, always leaving early, always returning late. They exchanged polite nods, brief hellos. Once Lily waved enthusiastically from down the hallway, and Evelyn waved back with that same small, careful smile. On Thursday evening, Adrian noticed something odd. He was taking out the trash, a task he usually saved for after Lily went to bed, when he saw what looked like water seeping out from under the door of apartment 3A. He knocked. No answer. Knocked again, louder. The door opened a crack and Evelyn appeared, still in her work clothes but with her hair down now, slightly disheveled. Her eyes widened when she saw him. Sorry to bother you, Adrian said, but I think you might have a leak. There's water coming out into the hallway. Oh, God. She looked down, seeing the water for the first time. Hold on. She disappeared back inside, and Adrian heard the sound of frantic footsteps. A moment later, she reappeared, looking genuinely distressed. I don't know what happened. Everything was fine this morning, and now there's water everywhere. Mind if I take a look? She hesitated, and Adrian could see the internal calculation happening, privacy versus necessity. Necessity 1. Please. Yes. Thank you. He followed her inside, and the first thing that struck him was how different the apartment was from his own, where his place was comfortable chaos, toys and work boots and dishes in varying states of cleanliness. Hers was meticulously organized. Minimalist furniture, lots of books, plants on every available surface. A large dining table was covered with papers and a laptop, suggesting this was where she did most of her work. Everything had its place, and every place suggested someone who'd put considerable thought into creating a specific kind of environment. And in the middle of this carefully constructed space, water was indeed pooling across the kitchen floor. The sink, Evelyn said helplessly, gesturing. I think it's the sink. Adrian crouched down and opened the cabinet beneath. Sure enough, the pipe connection had come loose, and water was streaming out with enthusiasm. Found the problem. You got a bucket? She produced a large mixing bowl, and Adrian positioned it to catch the worst of the flow. Okay, I need to shut off your water main. Where's your access panel? I don't know. Probably in the bathroom. Same layout as mine. He found it quickly, shut off the water, and returned to the kitchen. The immediate crisis contained, he examined the pipe more carefully. Looks like the connection just worked itself loose. Happens sometimes in these older buildings. You got any tools? I have a screwdriver. Maybe. Somewhere. Adrian smiled despite himself. That's okay. Let me grab my toolbox from across the hall. I'll be right back. When he returned, Evelyn had managed to towel up most of the water. She looked distinctly uncomfortable with the situation. Not with him specifically, he thought, but with the entire concept of needing help. This is really kind of you, she said as he worked. I could have called a plumber. At 8 p.m., you'd be waiting until tomorrow and paying emergency rates. He tightened the connection, tested it, tightened it a bit more. Besides, this is a 5-minute fix. No sense spending $200 on something this simple. I would have had no idea how to do this. Different skill sets. I couldn't begin to do whatever it is you do with hospitals and medical technology. She leaned against the counter, watching him work. It's actually more boring than it sounds. Doubt that. He turned the water main back on and checked for leaks. Nothing. There. Good as new. Well, good as it was before anyway. Thank you. Really, She paused, seeming to struggle with something. Can I offer you coffee or tea? Something to say thank you? Adrian glanced at his watch. Lily would be asleep by now. She'd gone down easily tonight, exhausted from a field trip to the zoo. Coffee would be great, actually. Evelyn moved through her kitchen with practiced efficiency, and a few minutes later they were sitting at her dining table with steaming mugs. Adrian carefully moved some of her work papers aside to make room. Sorry about the mess, she said. I usually work from home in the evenings. This is what you call a mess? Adrian gestured around the immaculate apartment. You should see my place. Lily's toys have achieved sentience and formed their own civilization. That earned him a genuine laugh. Brief, but real. Your daughter seems wonderful. Very spirited. That's one word for it. Hurricane is another. He took a sip of coffee. It was good, much better than the instant stuff he usually made. She asked me if she could get half a frog the other day. Half a frog? I'd already said no to a whole frog. She decided to negotiate down. Evelyn smiled into her coffee cup. Smart kid. Too smart for my own good sometimes. He looked around the apartment again, taking in the details. How long have you lived here? 4 years. You? 3 months. We moved from a smaller place across town, needed an extra bedroom for Lily. Just the two of you? Just the two of us. Her mother decided parenthood wasn't for her. That was 4 years ago. Evelyn's expression shifted slightly. Not pity, exactly, but understanding. I'm sorry. It is what it is. We're doing okay. Better than okay, actually. He meant it. Despite everything, despite the exhaustion and the constant juggling act, he and Lily had built something good together. They fell into conversation more easily than Adrian expected. She asked about his work at the garage, and he found himself explaining the satisfaction of diagnostics, of tracking down the one thing that was causing an entire system to fail. She listened with genuine interest, asking questions that suggested she actually cared about the answers rather than just being polite. What about you? He asked. Medical technology. That's pretty broad. I run a company called MediSync. We develop software platforms that help hospitals manage patient data, coordinate care teams, streamline administrative processes. She spoke about it with the fluency of someone who'd explained this many times. Healthcare systems are incredibly complex, lots of moving parts that need to work together seamlessly. When they don't, people suffer. My job is making sure they do. So you're the mechanic, just for hospitals instead of cars. She considered this. I suppose that's accurate, yes, though hospitals are significantly more complicated than cars. You've never tried to fix a 2003 Dodge transmission. Another laugh. Adrian was collecting them now, these brief moments when her carefully maintained composure cracked just enough to let something genuine through. "Do you enjoy it?" he asked. "The work?" "I'm good at it," she said, which wasn't quite an answer. "And it matters. That counts for something." "But do you enjoy it?" Evelyn set down her coffee cup, her fingers tracing its rim absently. "I used to. When the company was smaller, when I was building something from scratch. Now it's different, bigger, more political." She seemed to catch herself. "Sorry, you probably don't want to hear about corporate politics." "I asked, didn't I?" She studied him for a moment, and Adrian had the distinct impression he was being evaluated somehow, measured against some internal metric he couldn't see. Whatever she found seemed to satisfy something, because she continued. "There's a board meeting next week. They want to take the company public, IPO. It would mean significant expansion, new investors, more capital." She paused. "It would also mean I'd have much less control over the direction of the company I built." "Oh, you don't want to do it." "I don't know what I want to do." The logical choice is obvious: more resources, bigger impact, better outcomes for more patients. But, she trailed off. But I'd be accountable to shareholders who care more about quarterly profits than whether our software actually helps people. And I already spend most of my time in meetings instead of doing actual work. This would make that worse. Adrian nodded slowly. "Sounds like you've already decided, and you're just trying to convince yourself you haven't." Evelyn blinked. "That's probably accurate. So don't do it. Keep the company private, keep your autonomy." "It's not that simple." "Why not?" "Because the board is right. We could help more people, save more lives, potentially. How do I weigh that against my personal comfort?" Adrian leaned back in his chair. "I'm probably not qualified to give business advice to a CEO, but from where I'm sitting, it sounds like you're trying to justify doing something you know will make you miserable because you think that's what you're supposed to do." She was quiet for a long moment. "You're very direct." "Sorry, occupational hazard. When I'm diagnosing a car, dancing around the problem doesn't help. I forget that people don't always work the same way." "No, I appreciate it, actually. Most people in my life are very careful about what they say to me. It's refreshing to talk to someone who isn't." They talked for another hour, the conversation drifting from work to Portland to the building itself. Evelyn had chosen this apartment specifically because it was quiet, she said. Private. A place where she could be nobody in particular rather than the CEO of a successful company. "Does it work?" Adrian asked. "Being nobody in particular?" "Sometimes. When I'm here, I can almost forget about the rest of it. Almost." Eventually, Adrian glanced at the clock and realized it was past 11. "I should get back. Early day tomorrow." "Of course. Thank you again for fixing the sink and for the coffee. I mean, you drank my coffee, but..." She stopped, looking slightly flustered. "Thank you for the company." "Any time. And I mean that. If you have any other household emergencies, I'm right across the hall." As he gathered his tools, Evelyn walked him to the door. "Adrian, your daughter was right, by the way." "About what?" "The frog. Half a frog is definitely better than no frog." He grinned. "Don't encourage her. Next she'll be asking for 3/4 of a frog." Back in his own apartment, Adrian checked on Lily, still asleep, one arm flung dramatically over her head, before getting ready for bed himself. As he brushed his teeth, he thought about the evening. About Evelyn Hart, who ran a major company but didn't know where her water main was, who made excellent coffee and laughed like she was surprised to find herself doing it, who sat in an immaculate apartment surrounded by plants and papers and seemed, despite everything she'd built, fundamentally lonely. No man ever stays. Warren's words echoed in his head, and for the first time, Adrian felt something other than irritation. He felt curiosity. And underneath that, something else, something that might have been concern or interest, or the first stirrings of a connection he hadn't been looking for. He climbed into bed and stared at the ceiling, listening to the quiet sounds of the building settling around him. Across the hall, he could hear faint movement. Evelyn, presumably, getting ready for bed herself. Or maybe working late into the night on whatever corporate crisis demanded her attention. Adrian closed his eyes and tried not to think about sad eyes or empty apartments or the particular kind of loneliness that came from being surrounded by people who only saw what you could do for them, never who you actually were. He failed. Tomorrow, he decided, he'd make extra coffee. Maybe bring a cup across the hall before heading to work. A small gesture, nothing dramatic. Just one neighbor being neighborly to another. Just that. Nothing more. He almost believed it. The coffee gesture became a pattern before Adrian fully realized it was happening. That first morning after fixing the sink, he'd brewed an extra cup and knocked on Evelyn's door at 6:45 a.m., figuring she'd already be awake based on the sounds he'd heard through the wall. She'd answered in a silk robe, hair damp from the shower, looking genuinely startled to find anyone standing there. "I made too much," he'd said, which was a lie. "Thought you might want some before your car service arrives." She'd taken the cup with both hands, and something in her expression had softened in a way he couldn't quite name. "Thank you. You didn't have to do this." "I know." The next morning, he'd found a bag of expensive coffee beans hanging from his doorknob with a note in precise handwriting. "Since you're clearly running a charity coffee service, you should at least use decent beans." E. So he'd made coffee with her beans and brought her a cup again, and then again the day after that. By the end of the week, it had become an unspoken routine. He'd knock, she'd answer, sometimes in professional clothes, sometimes still in pajamas, and they'd exchange a few words before she had to leave and he had to get Lily ready for school. Small moments, nothing extraordinary, but they accumulated into something that felt like the beginning of friendship, or at least the scaffolding upon which friendship might eventually be built. "Daddy, why do you bring coffee to the fire hair lady?" Lily asked one morning, watching him pour the second cup. "Her name is Evelyn, and I bring it because it's nice to be nice." "But you never bring coffee to Mr. Warren." "Mr. Warren doesn't drink coffee. He drinks tea with too much sugar." Lily considered this with her characteristic seriousness. "Can I bring her something?" "Like what?" "A picture. I'll draw her a picture of a cat. Everybody likes cats." "That's very thoughtful, sweetheart. I'm sure she'd love that." So Lily created an elaborate crayon masterpiece featuring what was either a cat or possibly a lion with rainbow fur, and insisted on delivering it herself. When Evelyn opened the door that evening, Lily thrust the artwork forward with both hands. "I made you this. It's a cat. Well, it's probably a cat. Maybe it's a lion. Do you like it?" Evelyn crouched down to Lily's level, taking the drawing with genuine care. "This is beautiful. I love the colors. Rainbow fur is very creative." "That's because regular cats are boring. This cat is special." "I can see that." Evelyn looked up at Adrian, still standing in his doorway. "May I keep this?" "It's a gift," Lily announced. "You have to keep gifts. That's the rule." "Then I'll treasure it. Thank you, Lily." Adrian watched his daughter beam with pride, and something warm settled in his chest. He'd worried sometimes that growing up with just him wouldn't be enough, that Lily would miss having a mother figure or female friends or some essential feminine influence that he couldn't provide. But maybe what she needed wasn't gender-specific. Maybe she just needed to see kindness exchanged between people, to learn that the world could be generous if you approached it with an open heart. The following Saturday, Adrian was attempting to assemble a bookshelf he'd bought on sale. One of those flat-pack nightmares that claimed to be easy assembly, but actually required engineering degrees and possibly dark magic, when someone knocked on his door. Evelyn stood in the hallway, holding a casserole dish. "Hi," she said, sounding almost uncertain. "I made too much lasagna. I thought you and Lily might want some." Adrian looked at the dish, then at her. The parallel to his coffee excuse wasn't lost on either of them. "You made too much lasagna. I'm a terrible cook. I always make too much of everything." "That smells amazing for someone who's terrible at cooking." A small smile. "Fine. I made exactly the right amount of lasagna and decided to share it. Is that acceptable?" "Very acceptable. Come in. Fair warning, though. I'm in the middle of furniture assembly hell, so it's chaos in here." She stepped inside, taking in the scattered pieces of pressed wood and the incomprehensible instruction manual. "Do you need help? Can you read Swedish?" "The instructions are in Swedish?" "I think so. Either that or they're in some kind of ancient rune system designed to drive people insane." Evelyn set the lasagna on the kitchen counter and picked up the instruction sheet. "This is English. Very poorly translated English, but English nonetheless." "Are you sure? Because that looks like gibberish to me." Step 3A says to insert the dowel rod into the pre-established cavity until hearing the satisfying click of achievement. So, yes, poorly translated, but definitely English. Adrian laughed, the sound genuine and surprised. The satisfying click of achievement that's going on my tombstone. Daddy? Who's here? Lily emerged from her bedroom, saw Evelyn, and immediately lit up. It's you! Did you hang up my cat picture? I did. It's on my refrigerator, place of honor. Really? Can I see? Evelyn glanced at Adrian, who shrugged. If you don't mind a 6-year-old invading your space, I certainly don't. I'd like that, actually. So Lily grabbed Evelyn's hand with the casual confidence of childhood and led her across the hall. Adrian followed, curious despite himself to see Evelyn's apartment in daylight. The last time he'd been here, it had been evening, and he'd been focused on the plumbing emergency. The space looked different in afternoon light. The plants he'd noticed before were thriving, clearly well-tended, creating small pockets of green throughout the room. The books on the shelves were organized by subject, he realized. Business texts, medical references, but also fiction, poetry, philosophy. A person could learn a lot about someone from their bookshelf. And there, on the refrigerator, was Lily's rainbow cat, held in place by a magnet from what looked like Paris. See? Evelyn pointed, right there where I can see it every morning. Lily glowed with satisfaction. It makes your kitchen more colorful. It was very white before. It was, wasn't it? I should probably do something about that. You should get more pictures, and maybe a plant, a big one. I have plants, Evelyn protested gently, but not a big one. Every kitchen needs a big plant. That's what Daddy says. Adrian coughed. I don't think I ever said that specifically. You said it about Mrs. Chen's kitchen. Remember? You said it looked sad and needed a big plant. I was trying to be nice. Mrs. Chen had just moved in and... He stopped, seeing Evelyn trying not to laugh. Okay, yes, I apparently have strong opinions about kitchen plants. Nothing wrong with that, Evelyn said. For what it's worth, I think you're right. This kitchen does look a bit sterile. They ended up staying for a while, Lily chattering away while Evelyn listened with what seemed like genuine interest. Adrian found himself relaxing in a way he usually didn't around new people. There was something easy about Evelyn once you got past the initial reserve, a dry sense of humor, an ability to talk to Lily without condescension, a quality of attention that made you feel heard rather than merely tolerated. Eventually, Lily noticed the papers spread across Evelyn's dining table. What's all that? Work stuff. Very boring. What kind of work stuff? Evelyn hesitated, then seemed to decide something. I have to give a presentation next week. I'm trying to figure out how to explain complicated things in a way that people will actually listen to. Just use pictures, Lily advised sagely. Mrs. Patterson says pictures help people understand better. Mrs. Patterson is wise. Unfortunately, my pictures are all graphs and charts. Those are the boring kind of pictures. Lily, Adrian warned, though he was fighting a smile. But Evelyn was laughing. She's absolutely right. They are the boring kind of pictures. When they finally returned to Adrian's apartment, the lasagna had cooled enough to eat. Adrian invited Evelyn to stay for dinner, half expecting her to decline with some polite excuse about work. Instead, she said yes. They sat around his small kitchen table, Lily monopolizing the conversation with a detailed account of everything that had happened at school that week. Evelyn asked questions, made appropriate impressed noises, and generally acted like a 6-year-old's daily dramas were the most fascinating things she'd heard all day. Do you like your job? Lily asked suddenly, with the bluntness only children could get away with. Evelyn paused mid-bite. That's a complicated question. Daddy likes his job. He says fixing things makes him happy. Does it? Evelyn looked at Adrian. He shrugged. Yeah, actually. There's something satisfying about taking something broken and making it work again. Feels useful. I wish I could say the same. Evelyn set down her fork. I used to love what I did. Now I spend most of my time managing people and sitting in meetings. The actual work, the thing I started the company to do, I barely touch anymore. Why don't you just do less meetings? Lily asked. Because when you run a company, meetings are part of the job. That sounds terrible. I would never run a company. Smart kid, Evelyn murmured. After dinner, Evelyn helped clean up despite Adrian's protests. Lily, full of lasagna and Saturday energy, had retreated to her room to play. The apartment was quiet except for the sound of running water and clinking dishes. Thank you for this, Evelyn said quietly. "For letting me stay. Thank you for the lasagna, and for helping with the bookshelf earlier even though we never actually finished assembling it. I think we got through step 3A. That's something. The satisfying click of achievement." She smiled, drying a plate. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Why are you being so nice to me?" The question caught Adrian off guard. "What do you mean?" "The coffee, inviting me to dinner, fixing my sink. You barely know me. Most people—" She trailed off. "Most people what?" Evelyn was quiet for a moment. "Most people want something, or they're nice because of who I am professionally. They're networking or trying to get something out of me, but you don't even know what I do, really. You just show up." Adrian turned off the water, dried his hands. "I'm nice to you because you seem like you could use someone being nice to you. No ulterior motive, no agenda, just neighborly kindness. People aren't usually kind without reason. Then you've been talking to the wrong people." She met his eyes, and in that moment, Adrian saw past the careful composure to something raw underneath. Surprise, maybe, or gratitude, or the kind of cautious hope that comes from expecting disappointment. "I should go," she said finally. "It's late." "It's 8:30. "I have work tomorrow. Sunday doesn't really exist in my world." "That's a depressing sentence." "Yes," she agreed. "It really is." At the door, she paused. "Adrian? If you ever need anything, babysitting, or help with Lily, or just anything, I'm right across the hall." "I'll remember that." After she left, Adrian finished the bookshelf alone. It took another hour and resulted in several satisfying clicks of achievement, along with a few profoundly unsatisfying moments of having to disassemble entire sections because he'd put pieces in backward. But he got it done, and by the time he collapsed on the couch, he felt the particular exhaustion that comes from a day well spent. Lily appeared in her pajamas, ready for bed. "I like Evelyn. She's nice." "She is nice." "Is she sad because she doesn't have a family?" Adrian pulled his daughter onto his lap. "I don't know if she's sad, sweetheart, but yeah, I think maybe she's lonely sometimes. She should come over more, then she wouldn't be lonely." "Maybe, but that's her choice to make." "Can we invite her to the zoo next weekend? We're going to the zoo, remember?" "I remember. And sure, we can invite her, but she might be busy." "She's always busy. That's the problem." Adrian kissed the top of Lily's head, marveling at his daughter's ability to cut straight to the heart of things. "When did you get so wise?" "I've always been wise. You just don't always listen." The week that followed established new patterns. The morning coffee continued, but now sometimes Evelyn would linger for a few extra minutes, talking about nothing in particular. She started leaving the door open when she got home in the evenings, and Lily, who had no concept of adult boundaries, would wander over to show her drawings or report on school activities. Evelyn never seemed to mind. In fact, she seemed to welcome the interruptions. On Wednesday evening, Adrian was cooking dinner when he heard raised voices from across the hall. Not quite yelling, but close. Evelyn's voice strained with frustration, and a man's voice he didn't recognize. The conversation was muffled by the door, but the tension was clear even through the wall. He turned down the stove, listening despite knowing he shouldn't. The male voice rose, saying something sharp. Evelyn's response was quieter, controlled, but there was steel underneath. Then silence. Then the sound of a door closing with more force than necessary. Adrian waited, uncertain. Was it his place to check on her? They'd become friendly, sure, but they weren't close. Not really. She might resent the intrusion. He was still debating when Lily made the decision for him. "Daddy, Evelyn sounds upset. We should check on her." "Sweetheart, that might be private." "But she's our friend. Friends check on friends." The simple logic of 6-year-olds. Adrian sighed, turned off the stove entirely, and crossed the hall with Lily in tow. He knocked, waited, knocked again. The door opened and Evelyn stood there looking composed except for her eyes, which were slightly red-rimmed. "Adrian, hi." "We heard voices, just wanted to make sure everything's okay." "Everything's fine, just a work thing." "You've been crying," Lily observed with characteristic bluntness. Evelyn blinked, then laughed, a short, sharp sound. "I have been. You're very observant. Daddy cries sometimes too. He says it's okay to cry." "Lily," Adrian started, but Evelyn crouched down to Lily's level. "Your dad is right. It is okay to cry. Do you want a hug? Hugs help. For a moment, Evelyn looked like she might decline. Then something in her face crumpled slightly, and she nodded. Lily wrapped her small arms around Evelyn's neck, squeezing with the unselfconscious intensity of childhood affection. When she pulled back, Evelyn was smiling, despite the tears still clinging to her lashes. Thank you. That did help. We're making spaghetti, Lily announced. You should eat with us. Sad people need spaghetti. I don't want to intrude. You're not intruding, Adrian said. Lily's right. Sad people need spaghetti. It's basically medical fact. Evelyn hesitated, then nodded. Okay. Yes. Thank you. Over dinner, spaghetti with very small vegetables, per Lily's specifications. Evelyn slowly began to relax. She didn't mention what had upset her, and Adrian didn't ask. Instead, they talked about inconsequential things. Lily's upcoming school play, a particularly difficult car repair Adrian had dealt with that day, the fact that someone in the building kept playing saxophone at 11 p.m. I actually like the saxophone, Evelyn admitted. It's kind of soothing. It's terrible, Lily declared. It sounds like a goose learning to sing. Adrian nearly choked on his water. Where do you come up with these things? It's true. Doesn't it sound like that? It absolutely does, Evelyn agreed, grinning. After Lily went to bed, Adrian and Evelyn sat in the living room with tea. The apartment was quiet, comfortable. Outside, Portland rain had started to fall, creating a gentle percussion against the windows. The man you heard earlier, Evelyn said finally, that was David Thornton. He's on my board of directors. He wants to push forward with the IPO, whether I agree or not. Can he do that? If he gets enough votes from the other board members, yes. I built the company, but I don't have absolute control anymore. I gave up some of that when I took on investors. She stared into her tea. He said I was letting personal feelings cloud my judgment, that I was being selfish for not wanting to expand. Are you? Being selfish? I don't know, maybe. I know what happens when companies go public. I've seen it. The mission gets lost. Everything becomes about growth and returns and appeasing shareholders. The work that matters, the actual patients, the actual care, becomes secondary. Sounds like you've already made your decision. I've made a decision about what I want, but what I want and what I should do might be different things. Adrian set down his cup. Can I tell you something? And you can tell me if I'm overstepping. Okay? I think you spend too much time trying to figure out what you should do according to everyone else's metrics. Your board, your investors, whatever standard you think you're supposed to meet. But from where I'm sitting, you built something incredible because you cared about it. The minute you stop caring and start just going through the motions to satisfy other people, that's when you lose. Evelyn was quiet for a long moment. You're very wise for a mechanic. Mechanics are extremely wise. We just express our wisdom through engine diagnostics. She smiled, but it faded quickly. There's something else, something I haven't told the board. Adrian waited. I've been getting acquisition offers, big ones, tech giants who want to buy Medisync outright. I've turned them all down because I don't want to hand over something I built to a corporation that'll gut it for parts. She took a shaky breath. But David found out about one of the offers. He's furious that I didn't bring it to the board. He says I'm sabotaging opportunities. Were you? Maybe. Probably. I can't watch something I poured 10 years of my life into get dismantled. I can't. The pain in her voice was visceral. Adrian moved without thinking, sitting beside her on the couch, close enough that their shoulders nearly touched. Then don't. Tell them no. Tell David no. It's your company. Your decision. It's not that simple. Why not? Because I'm tired, Adrian. The words came out raw, exhausted. So tired of fighting the board, fighting market pressures, fighting people who think they know better. Sometimes I think about just letting go, selling everything, walking away, starting over somewhere quiet where nobody knows who I am or what I've built. Would that make you happy? I don't know what would make me happy anymore. I barely remember what happy feels like. Adrian's chest tightened. He recognized that tone, the particular emptiness of someone who'd spent so long surviving that they'd forgotten how to actually live. Evelyn, I'm sorry. She stood abruptly. I shouldn't dump all of this on you. You have your own life, your own problems. You don't need mine. I asked, didn't I? You were being polite. I was being a friend. There's a difference. She looked at him, something complicated moving across her face. Why are you doing this? Doing what? This? Being kind, listening. You barely know me. I know enough. I know you make time to talk to a 6-year-old about rainbow cats even though you work 70-hour weeks. I know you say thank you for coffee even though you don't have to. I know you're carrying weight that nobody should have to carry alone. He stood, facing her. And I know that you're a good person dealing with impossible choices. And sometimes good people just need someone to tell them it's okay to choose themselves. Evelyn's eyes were bright with unshed tears. You make it sound simple. Maybe it is simple. Maybe we're the ones making it complicated. In my experience, nothing is ever simple. There was history in those words, pain he didn't fully understand yet. Adrian wanted to ask, wanted to know what had carved such deep certainty into her that kindness must always come with conditions. But now wasn't the time. You should probably get some sleep, he said instead. Big week ahead. Yeah, you're right. She moved toward the door, then paused. Adrian, thank you for dinner and for listening and for not telling me what to do. Anytime. After she left, Adrian cleaned up the remaining dishes and checked on Lily one more time. His daughter was sprawled across her bed, one arm hanging off the side, completely unconscious in the way only children could manage. He pulled the blanket up over her shoulders and stood there for a moment, watching her breathe. He thought about Evelyn's words. I don't know what would make me happy anymore. It was the saddest thing he'd heard in a long time, made worse by how clearly she meant it. Somewhere along the way, she'd lost herself in the machinery of success, in the endless demands of other people's expectations. Adrian understood that, in his own way. After Jessica left, he'd spent months just going through the motions, work, Lily, sleep, repeat. It had taken time to remember that life could be more than mere survival, that happiness wasn't something you achieved but something you chose, moment by moment, in small ways. He wanted that for Evelyn. Wanted her to find those small moments of joy that had nothing to do with quarterly earnings or board meetings. Wanted her to remember what it felt like to want something just because it made her happy, not because it served some greater strategic purpose. The rain continued to fall outside, steady and persistent. Across the hall, he heard movement, Evelyn, presumably, getting ready for bed, or more likely, returning to work. He wondered if she'd take any of what he'd said to heart, or if she'd wake up tomorrow and slide right back into the armor she wore so well. Time would tell. For now, he had done what he could. He'd shown up, he'd listened, he'd offered friendship without strings attached. Sometimes that was enough. Sometimes it was everything. The board meeting happened on a Thursday, and Adrian knew it had gone badly before Evelyn even made it home. He was in the hallway, having just picked up Lily from school, when he heard the elevator doors open. Evelyn stepped out, her face a carefully maintained mask, but her hands were trembling slightly as she tried to fit her key into the lock. It took her 3 attempts. Evelyn? Adrian moved closer, Lily's hand still in his. You okay? She turned and the mask slipped just enough for him to see the devastation underneath. They voted to move forward with the IPO, 7-3. I lost. I'm sorry. David gave this whole speech about fiduciary responsibility and shareholder value and maximizing impact. Everyone nodded along like it was gospel. Her laugh was bitter. 10 years. I spent 10 years building something that mattered, and they just decided it wasn't mine anymore. Lily tugged on Adrian's sleeve. Daddy, she needs spaghetti again. Under different circumstances, it might have been funny. Instead, Adrian just felt his heart break a little for the woman standing in front of him, trying so hard to hold herself together in a hallway where anyone could see. Come inside, he said quietly. Please. This time, she didn't hesitate. Inside his apartment, Evelyn sank onto the couch while Adrian got Lily settled with coloring books at the kitchen table. When he returned, Evelyn had her face in her hands, shoulders shaking with silent tears. Adrian sat beside her, not touching, just present. He'd learned a long time ago that sometimes people didn't need solutions or platitudes. Sometimes they just needed space to fall apart without judgment. Eventually she looked up, wiping at her eyes with the back of her hand. I don't usually do this. Do what? Fall apart in other people's living rooms. You're not falling apart. You're processing. There's a difference. Is there? She laughed shakily. Because from here it feels pretty similar. Adrian went to the kitchen, poured her a glass of water, brought it back. She accepted it with a quiet thanks, her fingers wrapping around the glass like it was something to anchor to. What happens now? He asked. Now we prepare for the IPO, hire investment banks, get our financials audited, file with the SEC, do roadshows to pitch investors. It's months of work, all leading to a day when we ring a bell and suddenly my company belongs to thousands of strangers who only care about quarterly earnings. She took a sip of water, and I smile through all of it and pretend this is what I wanted. You could quit. I've thought about it, but that feels like letting them win, like admitting they were right about me. Right about what? Evelyn was quiet for a moment, staring at the water in her glass. David said something during the meeting. He said I was too emotionally attached to the company, that I couldn't see the bigger picture because I was too close to it. He implied that I was unstable, that my judgment was compromised. Adrian felt anger flare in his chest. That's manipulative bullshit. Maybe. Or maybe he's right. Maybe I am too close. Maybe I can't be objective anymore. Being emotionally invested in something you built isn't a weakness, Evelyn. It's called giving a damn, which is apparently more than your board does. She looked at him, something shifting in her expression. You're angry. Yeah, I'm angry. I'm angry that people who didn't build anything get to tear apart what you made. I'm angry that they gaslit you into thinking caring about your work is a character flaw. He took a breath, trying to moderate his tone. Sorry, this isn't my fight. I shouldn't. No, thank you for being angry on my behalf. Most people would tell me to be professional about it, to separate business from emotion. Most people are idiots. That got a real smile out of her, small but genuine. You have very strong opinions for someone who fixes cars for a living. Cars are honest. They break down for clear reasons, and fixing them produces clear results. People are messier, but the principles are the same. If something's broken, you don't pretend it's fine. You acknowledge it and you fix it. And if it can't be fixed, then you figure out if it's worth keeping anyway or if it's time to let it go. Evelyn set down the water glass, her hands steadier now. Can I tell you something? Something I haven't told anyone in a very long time. Of course. She took a deep breath, and Adrian had the sense that whatever came next would be important. Foundational, even. The kind of truth that explained all the other truths that came before it. 5 years ago, before I started Medisync, I was engaged. His name was Marcus. We'd been together for 3 years, and I thought we were building a life together. Her voice was steady but distant, like she was recounting someone else's story. We bought a house together, a beautiful old craftsman in Hawthorne. I was working as a consultant back then, making good money, and Marcus was a teacher. We were happy. Or I thought we were. Adrian didn't interrupt, sensing there was more. One night I came home late from a client meeting. It was winter, dark by 5 p.m. When I pulled up to the house, I saw smoke. She swallowed hard. There was a fire, the kitchen, we found out later. Electrical issue with the old wiring. Marcus was inside. He'd fallen asleep on the couch. Adrian's stomach dropped. He suddenly understood where this was going, and he wished he didn't. I ran inside. I know you're not supposed to. Everyone knows you're not supposed to, but I couldn't. He was in there. I couldn't just stand outside and wait for the fire department. Her hands had started trembling again. I found him in the living room. The smoke was so thick I could barely see. I dragged him out, got him to the front yard. The fire department arrived maybe 3 minutes later. Evelyn, he was fine. Some smoke inhalation, nothing serious. He woke up in the ambulance, confused but okay. She held up her hands, and for the first time, Adrian really looked at them. The skin was smooth in most places, but there were patches on her palms, her wrists, creeping up her forearms, where the texture was different. Scar tissue, faded with time, but still visible. I wasn't as lucky, 2nd and 3rd degree burns. I was in the hospital for 2 weeks, physical therapy for months after. Adrian felt something heavy settle in his chest. That's why you wear long sleeves. Most of the time, yes. The scars they're not terrible. They faded, but they're there and people notice, and I got tired of the questions and the stares. What happened with Marcus? Evelyn's expression went flat. He stayed for a while, visited me in the hospital, said all the right things, but I could see it in his eyes every time he looked at my hands. Guilt? Yes, but also discomfort, like I was a reminder of something he wanted to forget. She paused. 6 months after the fire, he told me he couldn't do it anymore, that every time he looked at me, he saw the fire, that he was sorry, but he needed to move on. Jesus Christ. He was honest, at least. I'll give him that. He didn't lie or make excuses. He just left. Moved across the country for a teaching job in Boston. Last I heard, he's married now, has a kid on the way. Adrian didn't know what to say. Every response that came to mind felt inadequate, too small for the enormity of what she'd just shared. After he left, I threw myself into work, Evelyn continued. I sold the house, what was left of it, and used the insurance money to start MediSync. I told myself I was building something meaningful, something that would help people. And I was. But I was also... She trailed off, searching for words. I was also proving something, to Marcus, to myself, that I could create something good out of something terrible, that the scars didn't define me. They don't, Adrian said quietly. Don't they? Be honest. If we'd met and I'd told you this story on day one, showed you these scars, told you about the man who left because he couldn't handle what I'd become, would you have stayed? Would you be sitting here now bringing me coffee every morning and letting your daughter draw me pictures? The question hung in the air between them, weighted with years of accumulated hurt. Adrian met her eyes. Yes. You can't know that. I can, actually, because those scars don't tell me you're broken. They tell me you ran into a burning building for someone you loved. They tell me you're brave in ways most people never have to be. And if Marcus couldn't see that, then he was the one who was broken, not you. Evelyn's breath caught. You don't understand. After he left, there were others. Not many, but a few. And it always ended the same way. As soon as they knew the full story, as soon as they understood what they were getting into, they left. Every single one. Because they were cowards. Or because I'm too much. Too damaged, too complicated, too... Stop. Adrian shifted closer, his voice firm but gentle. You're not too anything. You're someone who's been hurt badly by people who should have done better. That's not the same as being broken. It feels the same. I know, but it's not. Lily appeared from the kitchen, coloring book in hand. She climbed onto the couch between them, oblivious to the heavy conversation she was interrupting. Look, I made you another picture. This one featured a house, a rainbow, and what appeared to be 3 stick figures holding hands. That's you, and that's Daddy, and that's me, Lily explained, pointing to each figure. We're all friends. Friends hold hands. Evelyn stared at the drawing, her eyes filling with tears again. It's beautiful, Lily. Thank you. Don't cry. It's a happy picture. I know. These are happy tears. Lily seemed satisfied with this explanation and returned to her coloring. Adrian and Evelyn sat in silence for a while, the weight of her confession settling around them like snow, cold and isolating, but also somehow clean, clarifying. Why did you tell me? Adrian asked eventually. About Marcus and the fire? Evelyn didn't answer right away. When she did, her voice was barely above a whisper. Because I'm tired of hiding, and because you've been so kind. You and Lily both. And I thought if you were going to pull away eventually, like everyone else, I'd rather it happen now, before I got used to this. Used to what? This. Coffee in the mornings, dinner with you and Lily, someone actually asking how I am and meaning it. I thought if you were going to leave, better to give you a reason now than to wait for you to find one later. Adrian felt his heart crack open. Evelyn, look at me. She did reluctantly. I'm not going anywhere, and neither is Lily. We're right across the hall, and we're staying right across the hall, and no story you tell me is going to change that. You say that now. I say that now. And I'll say it tomorrow, and I'll keep saying it until you believe me. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and took her scarred hand in his. These don't scare me. Your history doesn't scare me. What scares me is watching you shrink yourself down because you think that's what you have to do to be acceptable. You don't. Not with me. Evelyn looked down at their joined hands, her breath shaky. I don't know how to do this. Do what? Trust that someone will stay. Every instinct I have tells me this will end like all the others. That eventually you'll see too much, or I'll need too much, and you'll realize it's not worth it. Then we'll prove your instincts wrong, one day at a time. She laughed, the sound watery but real. You're very stubborn. So I've been told. Lily gets it from me. I heard that, Lily called from her coloring station. They both smiled despite the emotional rawness of the moment. Evelyn squeezed Adrian's hand once, gently, before letting go. I should probably get back to my apartment, she said. I have about 1,000 emails to answer about the IPO. Or you could stay for dinner. We're having tacos. Well, Lily's having quesadillas because she's decided tacos are too messy, but same basic ingredients. I don't want to impose. You're not imposing. You're joining us for dinner. There's a difference. Evelyn hesitated, and Adrian could see the internal battle playing out across her face. The part of her that wanted to say yes warring with the part that had learned to protect itself by saying no. Okay, she said finally. Yes, I'd like that. Dinner was louder than usual. Lily in peak form with stories and observations and questions that ranged from why is the sky blue to do fish get thirsty? Evelyn engaged with all of it, asking follow-up questions and offering explanations that were both accurate and age-appropriate. Adrian watched them interact and felt something warm settle in his chest, something that felt dangerously close to contentment. After they ate, Lily declared that everyone needed to play Go Fish, which was apparently the law. They sat on the living room floor, cards spread between them, and played several rounds. Evelyn won twice, which Lily insisted was because she probably has magic powers. I definitely don't have magic powers, Evelyn said, laughing. That's exactly what someone with magic powers would say, Lily countered. Eventually, bedtime arrived. Lily hugged Evelyn goodnight with the casual affection of someone who'd decided they were friends, and therefore hugs were mandatory. Evelyn looked momentarily overwhelmed by the gesture, but she hugged back, her eyes suspiciously bright. After Adrian got Lily settled in bed, a process that involved 3 stories, 2 glasses of water, and a lengthy negotiation about whether stuffed animals needed their own blankets, he returned to find Evelyn standing by the window, looking out at the Portland skyline. Thank you for tonight, she said without turning around, for letting me be part of this. Your life with Lily, it means more than you probably realize. Adrian joined her at the window. You're welcome here any time. I mean that. I know you do. That's what makes it so terrifying. Why terrifying? Because I want to believe you. I want to believe that this... She gestured vaguely at the apartment, at him, at the warmth still lingering from the evening, could be real, that I could be part of something good without it falling apart. But my track record suggests otherwise. Then maybe it's time to start a new track record. She turned to face him, and in the dim light from the city outside, Adrian could see the hope and fear battling in her expression. What if I don't know how? Then we figure it out together. No expectations, no pressure. Just being human with each other. Being human, she repeated softly. I'm not sure I remember how to do that either. I've been the CEO for so long, I've forgotten how to just be Evelyn. So let's start small. Tomorrow morning, when I bring you coffee, don't immediately start thinking about your schedule or your emails or whatever crisis is waiting at the office. Just drink the coffee. Be present for 2 minutes. That's it. That's your grand plan? Coffee-based mindfulness? Everyone's got to start somewhere. She smiled, and this time it reached her eyes. Okay, I can try that. Good. At the door she paused again, her hand on the knob. Adrian? What you said earlier about my scars not scaring you, did you mean it? Every word. Why? Why doesn't it bother you like it bothered everyone else? Adrian thought about it for a moment, wanting to give her an honest answer. Because I've got scars too. Different kind, but scars nonetheless. My ex-wife didn't leave because I was burned, but she left because being a parent was harder than she expected, and I wasn't interesting enough to make it worth staying. I spent years wondering what was wrong with me, why I wasn't enough. So when I look at your scars, I don't see damage. I see evidence that you love someone enough to risk everything. That's not something to be ashamed of. That's something to be proud of." Evelyn's eyes were bright with tears again. "You're a good man, Adrian Blake. I'm just a guy who fixes cars and makes coffee, but I'm glad you're across the hall." "So am I." After she left, Adrian cleaned up from dinner and found himself thinking about everything she'd shared. The fire, Marcus, the pattern of abandonment that had shaped her belief that no one would stay. He understood why she'd built such high walls around herself. What amazed him was that she'd let him see behind them at all. He thought about his own history, too. Jessica leaving, the years of single parenthood, the careful way he'd constructed his life to be stable and predictable because chaos had nearly broken him once, and he wouldn't let it happen again. He and Evelyn were both people who'd learned to protect themselves, to expect disappointment as a defense mechanism. But maybe that was exactly why this could work, because they both knew what it meant to be hurt, and they both understood the courage required to try again anyway. The next morning, Adrian made coffee with extra care. When he knocked on Evelyn's door, she answered in pajamas, her hair loose around her shoulders, no makeup. It was the most unguarded he'd ever seen her. "Coffee delivery," he said. She took the cup with both hands, just like she always did. But this time, instead of immediately checking her phone or glancing at her watch, she stood there in her doorway and took a slow sip. Then another. "How is it?" Adrian asked. "It's good. Really good." She met his eyes. 2 minutes of being present. "I'm doing it. You're a natural." "Don't push it, Blake." He grinned. "Wouldn't dream of it." The weekend brought the zoo trip that Lily had been planning for weeks. Adrian had mentioned it to Evelyn almost as an afterthought, not expecting her to say yes. But she had, sounding almost surprised at herself. "I haven't been to the zoo in probably 15 years, she'd said. "Then you're overdue. Lily's been talking about the new penguin exhibit non-stop. Fair warning, she will have opinions about every animal we see." "I'm prepared for that." Saturday morning arrived sunny and unseasonably warm for March. Lily was up at dawn, so excited she could barely sit still long enough for breakfast. When Evelyn knocked at 8 a.m. sharp, dressed in jeans and a light sweater, Lily literally jumped with excitement. "You came! You're really here!" "This is the best day ever, and it hasn't even started yet." "Should I be worried about how high the bar is now?" Evelyn asked Adrian. "Absolutely, no pressure." The zoo was crowded with families taking advantage of the good weather. They started with the elephants, moved on to the big cats, then spent an inordinate amount of time at the penguin exhibit, while Lily provided detailed commentary on each bird's personality. "That one's named Gerald," she declared, pointing at a particularly rotund penguin. "He looks like a Gerald." "How can you tell?" Evelyn asked, playing along. "He just has Gerald energy. See how he waddles? That's a Gerald waddle." Adrian caught Evelyn's eye, and they both fought to keep straight faces. They ate lunch at the zoo's cafe, overpriced sandwiches that tasted like cardboard, but Lily was too happy to notice, and Evelyn gamely ate hers without complaint. Afterward, Lily wanted to go to the petting zoo, where she spent 20 minutes trying to convince a particularly stubborn goat to accept her affections. "I don't think he likes me," Lily said sadly when the goat walked away for the third time. "He's just playing hard to get," Evelyn assured her. "Some creatures are like that." "Were you hard to get?" Lily asked with the blunt curiosity of childhood. Evelyn glanced at Adrian, something complicated passing across her face. "Yeah, I think I probably was." "But Daddy got you anyway, because he's good at getting people." "Lily," Adrian said, feeling his face heat. We're not," but Evelyn was smiling. "Your dad is pretty persistent. It's one of his better qualities." "He has lots of good qualities," Lily said loyally. "He makes really good spaghetti, and he gives the best hugs, and he knows how to fix everything." "Not everything," Adrian muttered. "Everything important," Lily insisted. As the afternoon wore on, Adrian noticed Evelyn starting to relax in a way he hadn't seen before. She laughed more freely, asked Lily questions that extended the conversation rather than just being polite, and at one point bent down to tie Lily's shoe without being asked. Small gestures, but they spoke of someone becoming comfortable in a role she hadn't known she wanted. On the way back to the car, Lily took both their hands, swinging between them with each step. "This was the best day. Can we do this every weekend?" Every weekend might be ambitious, Adrian said. Once a month? Lily negotiated. We'll see. That means maybe yes. That means we'll see. In the parking lot, as Adrian buckled Lily into her car seat, Evelyn stood nearby looking thoughtful. Thank you for inviting me, she said. I didn't realize how much I needed a day like this. Thank you for coming. Lily was over the moon. Just Lily? Adrian straightened, meeting her eyes over the roof of the car. No, not just Lily. Something shifted in the air between them, subtle but undeniable. A recognition that this had become more than just neighbors being friendly. That somewhere between coffee deliveries and lasagna dinners and conversations about broken pipes and broken hearts, they'd started building something neither of them had been looking for. Adrian, Evelyn started, then stopped. Never mind. It's not important. If you want to say it, say it. She took a breath. I was going to say that I haven't felt this normal in a very long time, like I'm just a person spending time with people who actually like me, not the CEO of Medisync or someone's networking opportunity, just Evelyn. You are just Evelyn. That's all you ever needed to be. I'm starting to believe that might be true. They stood there for another moment, the Portland afternoon fading into evening around them, neither quite ready to break whatever spell the day had cast. Finally, Lily's voice came from inside the car. Are we going home or are we sleeping in the parking lot? Because I'm okay with either, but I'd like to know. The spell broke, and they both laughed. Adrian got in the driver's seat while Evelyn slid into the passenger side, and together they drove back through the city while Lily narrated every interesting thing she saw out the window. When they pulled up to the apartment building, Lily was fighting sleep, her head bobbing with exhaustion. Adrian carried her upstairs while Evelyn gathered the scattered belongings they'd accumulated throughout the day. A stuffed penguin from the gift shop, Lily's jacket, an empty water bottle. At their respective doors, Evelyn handed over the items. I really did have a wonderful time. Me too. Same time next month? It's a date. Adrian paused. I mean, not a date, just a plan, a scheduled activity involving... I know what you meant, Evelyn said, but she was smiling. Good night, Adrian. Good night. Inside his apartment, Adrian got Lily changed into pajamas and into bed with minimal resistance. She was too tired to negotiate. He sat with her until her breathing evened out, then returned to the living room and found himself standing at the window, looking out at the city lights. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is Evelyn. I realized I've been coming over for dinner and accepting your coffee for weeks and never gave you my number. That seems like an oversight. Also, thank you again for today. It meant more than you know. Adrian saved the contact and typed back, now I can text you when I make too much coffee instead of just showing up at your door. Very efficient. Efficiency is important, though I actually like the showing up at my door part. Then I'll continue doing that too. Good. Good night, Adrian. Good night, Evelyn. He set down the phone and allowed himself to acknowledge what he'd been carefully not thinking about for weeks now. He liked her. More than liked her. He cared about her happiness, worried about her stress, wanted to be the person she turned to when things got hard. And that was terrifying because caring about someone meant risking the kind of hurt he'd sworn he wouldn't let himself experience again. But maybe some risks were worth taking. Maybe some people were worth the uncertainty. Across the hall, through the shared wall, he heard the faint sounds of Evelyn moving through her apartment. He wondered if she was thinking the same things he was, if she felt the same pull he did, or if she was still too guarded to let herself consider the possibility. Only time would tell. For now, he had tomorrow's coffee to look forward to, and the day after that, and all the small moments that would accumulate into something neither of them had planned, but both of them needed. It was enough. For now, it was more than enough. The weeks following the zoo trip settled into a rhythm that felt almost dangerously comfortable. Coffee every morning, dinner together at least 3 times a week, weekends that somehow always included all 3 of them. Adrian stopped questioning it, stopped waiting for the moment when Evelyn would pull back and remember she had a whole separate life that didn't include a mechanic and his 6-year-old daughter. But that moment never came. Instead, she showed up. She brought takeout on nights when Adrian worked late. She helped Lily with a school project about the solar system, constructing a papier-mâché Saturn that was far more elaborate than the assignment required. She laughed at Adrian's terrible jokes and called him out when he was being stubborn, and somewhere in the midst of all that ordinary, everyday intimacy, something shifted. It was a Tuesday evening in late April when everything changed. Adrian was at the garage, elbow deep in an engine rebuild, when his phone rang. Lily's school. His heart immediately kicked into overdrive. They never called unless something was wrong. Mr. Blake? This is Principal Martinez. Lily's fine, but there's been a situation. Can you come pick her up? What happened? There was an incident on the playground. Another student said some unkind things about Lily's family situation, and Lily, well, she pushed him. We have a zero-tolerance policy for physical altercation, so we need you to come get her. She'll be suspended for the rest of today and tomorrow. Adrian closed his eyes, taking a breath. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Marcus appeared at his elbow as he cleaned off his hands. Everything okay? Lily got in a fight. I have to go get her. A fight? Lily? Marcus looked genuinely shocked. That kid wouldn't hurt a fly. Apparently, someone said something that changed that equation. I've got to go. Can you cover my shift? Already done. Go take care of your girl. The drive to the school felt longer than it should have. Adrian's mind raced through possibilities. What could someone have said to make Lily, who cried when they had to relocate a spider from the bathroom, resort to pushing another kid? He found her sitting in the principal's office, arms crossed, face set in a stubborn expression he recognized from his own reflection. Her eyes were red-rimmed but dry. When she saw him, her lower lip trembled. I'm sorry, Daddy. Principal Martinez, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and an unfortunate fondness for floral prints, gestured to a chair. Mr. Blake, thank you for coming so quickly. What exactly happened? According to witnesses, Lily and another student, Tyler Henderson, were on the playground during recess. Tyler made a comment about Lily not having a mother. Lily told him to stop. He continued, saying that her mother must not have wanted her. That's when Lily pushed him. He fell and scraped his knee. Adrian felt fury rise in his throat, hot and immediate. And what's being done about Tyler? He's been spoken to about his behavior. His parents have been called. Spoken to? That's it? Adrian tried to keep his voice level. He bullied my daughter about her mother abandoning her, and he gets spoken to while she gets suspended? Mr. Blake, I understand you're upset, but we have clear policies about physical violence. She's 6 years old and she was defending herself from emotional abuse. I know this is difficult, but the rules apply to everyone equally. Adrian looked at Lily, who was staring at her shoes. He took a breath, forcing himself to calm down. Getting angry at the principal wouldn't help his daughter. Fine, can we go? In the car, Lily was silent. Adrian glanced at her in the rearview mirror several times before finally pulling into a parking lot and turning around in his seat. You want to tell me what happened? Principal Martinez already told you. I want to hear it from you. Lily's face crumpled. Tyler said Mommy left because I wasn't good enough. He said if I was better, she would have stayed. And I know you always say to use words, not hands, but I was so mad, Daddy. I was so mad I couldn't think of any words. Adrian's heart shattered. He unbuckled his seatbelt and climbed into the back seat, pulling his daughter into his arms. Listen to me very carefully, sweetheart. Tyler was wrong. Your mother leaving had nothing to do with you, nothing. You were perfect then, and you're perfect now. Do you understand? Then why did she leave? It was the question she'd asked a dozen times in different ways over the years, and it never got easier to answer. Because she wasn't ready to be a mom. That was about her, not about you. But if I was really perfect, wouldn't she have wanted to stay? Perfection doesn't make people stay, Lily. Love does. And some people aren't capable of love the way they should be. That's their failing, not yours. She cried then, really cried, and Adrian held her until the tears subsided into hiccups. When she finally pulled back, wiping her nose on her sleeve, she asked, Am I in trouble? For defending yourself? No. But we're going to talk about better ways to handle it when people say mean things. Pushing Tyler didn't make you feel better, did it? No, it made me feel worse. That's usually how it works. Next time, and I really hope there isn't a next time, you come tell a teacher or you walk away. You don't give mean people the power to make you act in ways you'll regret. Okay, Daddy. He climbed back into the front seat and started the car. Now, what do you say we go home, eat some ice cream, and maybe watch a movie? Can we invite Evelyn? Adrian checked the dashboard clock. 2:30 p.m. Evelyn would be at work. She's probably busy, sweetheart. Can we ask? He pulled out his phone and texted. Lily got suspended from school. Long story. We're having ice cream and a movie if you want to join. No pressure. The response came almost immediately. Give me 30 minutes. When they got home, Adrian set Lily up with a coloring book while he started making grilled cheese sandwiches, comfort food for a hard day. He was flipping the second sandwich when he heard the knock. Evelyn stood in the doorway in full business attire, tailored navy suit, heels, hair pulled back, looking every inch the CEO she was. She was also holding a bag from the fancy ice cream place downtown. I brought reinforcements, she said, holding up the bag. 3 different flavors because I didn't know what emergency we were dealing with. You left work early. I rearranged some meetings. It's fine. She stepped inside, her eyes going immediately to Lily. Hey, you. Rough day? Lily nodded, suddenly shy. Evelyn set down the ice cream and crossed to where Lily sat at the kitchen table. She crouched down to eye level, her expensive suit be damned. I heard what happened. Can I tell you something? Okay. When I was about your age, a girl in my class said my hair looked like a crayon factory exploded. I was so upset that I cut off my own bangs with safety scissors. They were completely crooked, and my mom had to take me to a salon to fix it. I looked ridiculous for months. Despite herself, Lily giggled. You cut your own hair? I did. And you know what? It didn't make me feel better. The girl still said mean things, and now I also looked like I'd lost a fight with a lawnmower. So I learned that sometimes people say hurtful things because they're hurting inside. And the best thing you can do is feel sorry for them and walk away. That's what Daddy said. Your dad is very smart. Evelyn glanced up at Adrian, something warm in her expression. But I also want you to know that getting angry when someone says terrible things about your family, that's not wrong. The anger is okay. It's what we do with the anger that matters. I pushed Tyler. I heard. Did it help? No, it made everything worse. That's usually what happens. But you know what? Tomorrow is a new day, and you get to choose how you handle things then. That's the beautiful thing about being human. We get second chances. Lily seemed to consider this. Can I have the cookie dough ice cream? Evelyn smiled. Absolutely. That's what I would have chosen too. They ate ice cream before dinner because, as Adrian declared, all rules are suspended on suspension days. They watched an animated movie about a princess who saved herself, and by the time the credits rolled, Lily had fallen asleep between them on the couch, her head on Evelyn's lap. I should move her to bed, Adrian said quietly. In a minute. She's comfortable. They sat in the dimming light from the television, Evelyn's hand resting gently on Lily's shoulder. Adrian watched them and felt something crack open in his chest, something that had been locked away for so long he'd almost forgotten it was there. Thank you for coming, he said. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did. When you texted, I didn't even think about it. I needed to be here. Evelyn, I know what you're going to say. That this is too much, that we're just neighbors, that you don't want to impose. But Adrian, I don't feel imposed upon. I feel... She paused, looking down at Lily's sleeping face. I feel like I'm part of something, like I belong somewhere for the first time in years. And that terrifies me. But it also makes me happier than I've been in so long. Adrian's throat felt tight. It terrifies me too. Why? Because last time I let myself care about someone this much, she left. And I survived it, but just barely. If you left... He stopped, unable to finish the sentence. Evelyn met his eyes. I'm not Jessica. I know that. Do you? Because it feels like you're still waiting for me to disappear. Like you think one morning you'll bring coffee and I won't answer the door. Are you saying you won't? I'm saying I'm trying really hard not to. I'm saying that for the first time since Marcus, I'm willing to risk getting hurt again because this... She gestured between them, at Lily, at the whole domestic scene, is worth the risk. Adrian carefully stood, not wanting to wake Lily, and held out his hand. Come here. Evelyn gently shifted Lily's head to a pillow and stood, taking his hand. He led her to the kitchen, far enough from the couch that they could talk without waking his daughter. I need you to understand something, Adrian said. I'm not good at this. At relationships, at letting people in. Jessica broke something in me that I'm still trying to fix. But you, he took a breath. You make me want to try anyway. You and Lily together, watching you with her today, the way you just showed up without hesitation. I realized I don't want this to be temporary. I want you here, not just for coffee or dinner or emergencies. I want you here because you're part of our lives now, and I can't imagine them without you. Evelyn's eyes were bright. Adrian, His phone rang, cutting through the moment. He almost ignored it, but the ringtone was the one he'd assigned to the garage. He only got calls from work if something was wrong. Sorry, I have to take this, he answered. Marcus, what's up? Hey man, sorry to bother you, but there's a situation. That transmission rebuild you were working on. Customer just called, said his engine light came on right after picking up the car. He's heading back now and he's pissed. Manager wants you here to handle it. Adrian closed his eyes. I can't. Lily got suspended. I have to. I'll stay with her. Evelyn said it without hesitation. What? Go to work. I'll stay with Lily. She's asleep anyway, and if she wakes up, I'll be here. Evelyn, you don't have to. I want to. Please let me do this. Adrian looked at her, standing in his kitchen in her expensive suit, offering to babysit his daughter so he could go deal with an angry customer. It was such a simple thing, but it meant everything. Okay, thank you. Into the phone. I'll be there in 20 minutes. At the garage, the situation was exactly as messy as Adrian had anticipated. The customer, a middle-aged man with a red face and aggressive posture, was convinced Adrian had deliberately sabotaged his car. I just paid you $1,500 and now it's worse than when I brought it in. Adrian kept his voice calm and professional. Sir, I understand you're frustrated. Let me take a look and see what's going on. It took 20 minutes to diagnose the issue, a completely unrelated problem with the oxygen sensor that had nothing to do with the transmission rebuild. Adrian explained this to the customer, showed him the diagnostic readout, offered to fix it at cost. The man's anger deflated slowly. So you didn't mess up? No, sir. The transmission work is solid. This is a separate issue, probably been developing for a while. The timing is just unfortunate. By the time Adrian finished the oxygen sensor replacement and sent the customer on his way, mollified if not exactly happy, it was past 9 p.m. He texted Evelyn, on my way home, so sorry this took so long. Take your time. Lily woke up around 7, we had dinner, and I just put her back to bed. Everything's fine. When Adrian walked into his apartment, he found Evelyn curled up on his couch reading one of his books, a worn thriller he'd been working through for weeks. She changed out of her suit and into jeans and a t-shirt she must have gone across the hall to get. Hey, she said, setting down the book. How'd it go? Fixed. Customer's happy now. How was Lily? Perfect. We had leftover grilled cheese. She told me very detailed stories about every kid in her class, and then she asked me to read her 3 bedtime stories. I obliged. Adrian sat down next to her, suddenly exhausted. You didn't have to do all that. I wanted to. Adrian, you keep saying I don't have to do things, like I'm doing you favors. But I'm not. I'm choosing to be here because this is where I want to be. He turned to look at her, this woman who'd somehow become essential to his life in the space of a few months. I was going to say something before Marcus called, before everything got interrupted. You were telling me you want me here. I was. I am. He reached for her hand, lacing their fingers together. I'm also completely terrified because wanting something this much means it can hurt you when it's gone. It doesn't have to be gone. Doesn't it? You're about to take your company public. Your life is about to get exponentially more complicated. Board meetings, investor relations, media attention. Where does a mechanic and his kid fit into that? Evelyn shifted closer, her free hand coming up to cup his face. Right here. Exactly where you are now. Adrian, the IPO doesn't change what I want. If anything, knowing I have this, have you and Lily to come home to, makes all of that other stuff bearable. You say that now. I say that now and I'll keep saying it. And I know you don't fully believe me yet because people have let you down before. But I'm going to keep showing up until you do believe me. Every morning, every dinner, every emergency and ordinary moment, I'm going to be here. Adrian searched her face, looking for doubt or reservation and finding none. Just steady certainty and something that looked a lot like love. "I'm going to hold you to that," he said quietly. "Good. Please do." They sat like that for a long moment, foreheads touching, breathing the same air, and then Adrian closed the distance between them and kissed her. It was soft at first, tentative, both of them testing the waters of something they'd been dancing around for months. But then Evelyn's hand slid into his hair, and his arms went around her waist, and the kiss deepened into something that felt like coming home. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Evelyn laughed shakily. Yeah. We should probably talk about what this means." "Probably." Adrian kissed her again, briefer this time. "Or we could just agree that we're doing this and figure out the details as we go." "That's very unlike you. You're a planner." "Maybe you're a bad influence." "Maybe I am." She settled against his chest, and Adrian wrapped his arms around her, marveling at how perfectly she fit there. "Adrian? I'm scared too. I'm terrified, actually, but I'm more scared of walking away from this than I am of getting hurt." "Same here." "So we're doing this?" "We're doing this." Evelyn tilted her head up to look at him. "Lily's going to have opinions about this development. Lily's been dropping hints for weeks. I think she'll be thrilled. She's a smart kid. She gets that from me. Modest, too." Adrian grinned and pulled her closer. They stayed like that until Evelyn's phone buzzed with what was undoubtedly a work email. She ignored it. It buzzed again. She continued to ignore it. "You can check it," Adrian said. "I don't want to. Whatever it is can wait until tomorrow." "Who are you, and what have you done with Evelyn Hart, workaholic CEO?" She laughed. "She's still here. She's just learning that some things are more important than email." Eventually, they moved to continue the conversation at the kitchen table over tea. Evelyn told him about the upcoming IPO timeline, roadshows starting in 2 weeks, launch expected in late June. Adrian told her about Lily's school situation and his plan to talk to the principal again about the bullying. "I'll come with you if you want," Evelyn offered. "Sometimes it helps to have another adult backing you up." "You'd do that?" "Of course I would. Lily's important to me. You're both important to me." They talked until midnight, about everything and nothing. Practical things like schedules and logistics, deeper things like hopes and fears and what they wanted from this relationship that was no longer hypothetical. And through it all, Adrian felt something he'd almost forgotten existed, the bone-deep certainty that he wasn't alone anymore. When Evelyn finally stood to leave, Adrian walked her to the door. She paused there, her hand on the knob, and turned back to kiss him once more. "Good night," she murmured against his lips. "Good night. See you in the morning for coffee?" "Wouldn't miss it." After she left, Adrian checked on Lily one more time. His daughter was sprawled across her bed in that boneless way kids slept, completely at peace. He straightened her blankets and stood there for a moment, thinking about the day, the suspension, the emergency at work, the kiss that had changed everything. Life was messy and complicated and full of moments that knocked you sideways. But it was also full of people who showed up when it mattered. People who chose to stay even when leaving would be easier. People who looked at your scars, visible or otherwise, and decided you were worth it anyway. Adrian had spent 4 years building a life around self-sufficiency, convinced that needing people meant giving them the power to hurt you. But maybe that was the wrong way to think about it. Maybe needing people and letting them need you back was what made life worth living in the first place. He thought about Evelyn across the hall, probably still awake, probably checking the work emails she'd ignored earlier. He thought about how she'd left a board meeting to bring ice cream to a 6-year-old, how she'd stayed with Lily without hesitation so he could go to work, how she'd kissed him like she'd been waiting forever to do it. His phone buzzed, a text from her. "I can hear you thinking from across the hall. Go to sleep. Everything's going to be okay." He smiled and typed back, "How do you know I'm thinking?" "Because I'm thinking too, about you, about this, about how different everything feels now. Good different or bad different? The best different. Now seriously, go to sleep. Some of us have early morning coffee deliveries to look forward to." "Good night, Evelyn." "Good night, Adrian. Sweet dreams." Adrian set down his phone and got ready for bed. As he drifted off to sleep, he thought about tomorrow, about coffee and conversations and all the ordinary moments that were about to become extraordinary simply because she'd be part of them. He thought about the future, uncertain and complicated and full of potential pitfalls. He thought about the past, the scars they'd both accumulated and the ways they'd learned to protect themselves. But mostly, he thought about the present, about the woman across the hall who'd somehow become essential, about his daughter who'd recognized what he'd been too scared to acknowledge, about the life they were building together, one small moment at a time. It was enough. More than enough. It was everything. Morning came with the kind of soft light that made Portland feel like a watercolor painting. Adrian woke earlier than usual, his mind immediately returning to the previous night, the kiss, the conversation, the way everything had shifted from possibility into reality. He lay there for a moment, letting himself feel the hope without immediately questioning it. Then he got up and made coffee. When he knocked on Evelyn's door at 7 a.m., she answered wearing pajama pants and one of his old t-shirts that she must have borrowed at some point and never returned. Her hair was loose, falling over her shoulders, and she was smiling in a way that made his chest feel tight. "Good morning," she said, taking the coffee with both hands. "Good morning. Is that my shirt?" "Maybe. You want it back?" "Absolutely not. It looks better on you." She leaned against the doorframe, taking a slow sip. "So, last night happened." "It did. And we're okay with that?" "I'm more than okay with that." He paused. "Are you?" "I'm terrified and happy and completely out of my depth. So yes, I'm okay with it." They stood there grinning at each other like idiots until Lily's voice called from inside Adrian's apartment. "Daddy? Where are you?" "That's my cue," Adrian said. "Dinner tonight? All three of us?" "I'd love that. But Adrian, we should probably tell Lily. About us. She deserves to know what's happening." "Agreed. Tonight?" "Tonight." The day passed in a blur of ordinary tasks made extraordinary by anticipation. Adrian worked at the garage, finishing up the jobs that had piled up during yesterday's emergency. Marcus noticed his unusually good mood and called him out on it immediately. "You're whistling. You never whistle. What happened?" "Nothing. Can a guy be in a good mood?" "Not you. You're in a perpetual state of mild concern mixed with dad tired. This is different." Marcus's eyes widened. "Oh man, it's the neighbor lady, isn't it? You finally made a move." "I don't know what you're talking about." "You're a terrible liar. How long have you been bringing her coffee? 2 months? 3? I was starting to think you were never going to... Are we going to work? Or are we going to gossip like teenagers?" "We can multitask," Marcus said, grinning. "But seriously, I'm happy for you. You deserve good things, man." Adrian picked up Lily from school, and she immediately asked if Evelyn was coming over for dinner. "She is. Why?" "Because you have your happy face on. You only get that face when she's around." "Is that so?" "Yep. It's your Evelyn face. It's different from your regular face." Adrian looked at his daughter in the rearview mirror. "Lily, how would you feel if Evelyn and if we were more than just friends?" Lily's face lit up. "Like boyfriend and girlfriend?" "Something like that, yeah." "Does that mean she'll be around even more?" "Probably." "Good. I like her. She's nice and she doesn't treat me like a baby and she knows things about planets. Can she be my mom?" The question hit Adrian like a freight train. "Sweetheart, that's complicated. Evelyn and I just started. We're not even sure what this is yet. And you already have a mom, even if she's not around very much." "But Evelyn acts more like a mom than Jessica does. Jessica just sends cards. Evelyn reads me stories and brings ice cream when I'm sad and helps with my homework. That's what moms do." Adrian pulled into their parking spot and turned around to face her. "You're right that Evelyn does all those things. And she cares about you very much. But whether she becomes something more we have to take it slow, okay? We have to make sure it's right for everyone." "It's right," Lily said with absolute certainty. "I already know it's right." That evening, Evelyn arrived at 6 with groceries for dinner. She'd changed into jeans and a soft gray sweater, and when she saw Adrian, she smiled in a way that made him forget how to form coherent thoughts. "Hi," she said. "Hi, yourself." Lily appeared between them, grabbing Evelyn's hand. "Daddy told me you're going to be his girlfriend. I think it's great. Can we have spaghetti to celebrate?" Evelyn looked at Adrian, eyebrows raised. "You told her?" "I asked how she'd feel about it. She was enthusiastic. Very enthusiastic, Lily confirmed. The most enthusiastic. They cooked dinner together, the three of them moving around the small kitchen with practiced ease. Lily set the table with elaborate care, folding napkins into shapes that were supposed to be swans, but looked more like abstract origami. Evelyn made a salad while Adrian handled the pasta, and at some point their hands brushed and lingered and Lily made exaggerated gagging sounds. "You guys are being mushy. Get used to it," Adrian said, not moving his hand. Over dinner, they talked about Lily's return to school the next day. Adrian had called the principal that afternoon, had a long conversation about bullying policies and consequences, and had secured an assurance that Tyler would be monitored more closely. Evelyn had listened to the whole thing on speaker, occasionally writing notes on a piece of paper, and afterward had helped him craft a follow-up email that was professional but firm. "I think you handled it perfectly," Evelyn said now. "You advocated for Lily without being aggressive. That takes skill." "I had help." He met her eyes across the table. "Good help." After dinner and dishes, after Lily had been bathed and storied and tucked into bed with her usual routine, Adrian and Evelyn sat together on the couch. She'd curled into his side, fitting there like she'd been designed for that exact space. "I have to leave for the roadshow next week," she said quietly. 2 weeks of traveling to different cities, pitching to investors, Boston, New York, Chicago, San Francisco. "I'll be gone most of the time." Adrian felt his stomach drop. 2 weeks. "I know, and I hate it. I hate that right when we're starting this, I have to leave." "It's your job. I understand." "Do you? Because I'm not sure I do anymore." She sat up, turning to face him. "I've been thinking about what you said, about choosing myself. And I keep coming back to the same question. What do I actually want? What do you want?" "This, you, Lily. Coffee in the morning and dinner at night and helping with homework and just being part of something real. The IPO, the expansion, all of it feels hollow compared to what we have here." Adrian took her hands, noting absently that she wasn't wearing long sleeves tonight, just the sweater, pushed up to her elbows, her scars visible in the lamplight. She'd stopped hiding them around him weeks ago. "Evelyn, I can't be the reason you walk away from something you built. That's too much pressure, and it's not fair to either of us. You're not the reason. You're the catalyst. There's a difference." She took a breath. "I've been running on autopilot for so long, doing what I thought I was supposed to do, making choices based on what the board wanted or what investors expected. But when I'm here with you, I remember who I was before all of that, before I became the CEO, before I built these walls around myself. I remember what it feels like to just be Evelyn. You can be both, CEO and Evelyn." "Can I?" "Because it doesn't feel like it. Every minute I spend in board meetings is a minute I'm not here. Every decision I make to satisfy shareholders is a decision that takes me further from what actually matters." Adrian pulled her close, pressing a kiss to her temple. "Then maybe it's time to make different decisions." She was quiet for a long moment. "I'm scared. If I step back, if I don't go through with the IPO, the board will see it as weakness. David already thinks I'm too emotional, too attached. This would confirm everything he's been saying. Let him think that. Let all of them think whatever they want. The question is, what do you think? What does Evelyn Hart, not the CEO, actually want for her life? I want to wake up and not immediately check my email. I want to have breakfast with you and Lily instead of scarfing down a protein bar in the car. I want to come home at a reasonable hour and help with homework and cook dinner and be present for all those ordinary moments I've been missing." She looked up at him, her eyes bright. "I want to build something here, with you. And I can't do that if I'm on planes every week and in meetings every day and answering to people who don't actually care about me as a person. So don't. It's not that simple. Why not? You're the founder. You still have significant ownership. Tell them you're keeping the company private. Tell them you're restructuring your role. Tell them whatever you need to tell them, but choose yourself for once." Evelyn laughed shakily. "You make it sound easy." "It's not easy. It's probably going to be messy and complicated, and people are going to be angry. But you'll survive it. And on the other side, you'll have a life that's actually yours." She kissed him then, deep and intense, pouring everything she couldn't say into the gesture. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, she whispered, "I love you." Adrian's heart stopped, started again. What? I love you. I should probably be more cautious about saying that. We've only been officially together for 1 day, but I don't care. I love you and I love Lily, and I love what we're building together, and I don't want to lose it. You're not going to lose it. Evelyn, He took a breath. I love you too. I have for weeks, I think. I was just too scared to admit it. She smiled through tears. We're quite a pair, aren't we? Both terrified, both scarred, both convinced we're going to mess this up. Probably will mess it up sometimes, but we'll figure it out together. They stayed up late that night talking about possibilities and practicalities. Evelyn admitted she'd been considering a restructuring for months, bringing in a COO to handle day-to-day operations while she focused on the parts of the business she actually cared about. The board would hate it, she said. David would probably try to vote her out as CEO, but maybe that would be okay. Maybe it was time to let go of control and trust other people to carry the company forward while she built a different kind of life. What would you do if you weren't CEO? Adrian asked. I don't know. Consult, maybe help smaller healthcare startups get off the ground. Work on projects that actually interest me instead of just making money. She paused. Spend time with my family. Your family? You, Lily, if you'll have me. Adrian pulled her closer. We'll have you. For as long as you want to stay. Forever then. I want to stay forever. The next week was chaos. Evelyn called an emergency board meeting and announced her intention to restructure. She proposed hiring a COO, scaling back her hours, and most controversially, postponing the IPO indefinitely while they reevaluated whether going public aligned with the company's core mission. The board exploded. David called her irresponsible, emotional, unfit to lead. 2 other board members sided with him, but 3 others, including the company's original angel investor, a woman named Patricia Chen, who'd believed in Evelyn from the beginning, supported her decision. This is a mistake, David said, his face red. You're letting personal issues cloud your judgment. No, Evelyn replied calmly. For the first time in years, I'm making a decision with clear judgment. I built this company to help people, not to satisfy quarterly earnings reports. If that makes me unfit to lead in your eyes, then so be it. The vote came down to 4 against 3. Evelyn's proposal passed by the slimmest margin. David resigned immediately. I'm not going to sit here and watch you destroy everything we've built. Then don't, Evelyn said. There's the door. She came home that evening exhausted and exhilarated and found Adrian and Lily waiting with a celebration dinner of spaghetti and garlic bread. Lily had made a banner that said, "Congratulations, Evelyn," with the Evelyn spelled wrong, but the sentiment clear. You did it, Adrian said, pulling her into his arms. I did it. I'm terrified, and I have no idea if I made the right choice, but I did it. You made the right choice. I'm proud of you. Lily tugged on Evelyn's sleeve. Does this mean you get to stay for dinner every night now? Most nights, if you'll have me. Obviously, we'll have you. Your family now. Evelyn's eyes filled with tears. She crouched down to Lily's level. Family? Yeah, you're my almost mom. That makes you family. I would be honored to be your almost mom. They hugged, and Adrian watched them with a fullness in his chest that felt almost painful. This was what happiness looked like, he realized. Not some grand, dramatic gesture, but this. His daughter hugging the woman he loved, spaghetti cooling on the table, a crooked banner celebrating a choice that cost everything and gained even more. The weeks that followed settled into a new rhythm. Evelyn hired a COO named James Patterson, a former hospital administrator with actual healthcare experience and a management style that emphasized collaboration over competition. She restructured her role to focus on strategic partnerships and product development, the work she'd gotten into healthcare technology to do in the first place. Her hours became sane. She started sleeping through the night. The permanent tension in her shoulders began to ease. Adrian watched her transform and felt awed by her courage. She'd walked away from prestige and power and the validation of taking a company public, all for the chance at an ordinary life with him and Lily. It was the most extraordinary thing anyone had ever done for him. I don't know how to thank you, he said one evening when they were doing dishes together after dinner. For what? For choosing this. Choosing us. Evelyn set down the plate she'd been drying and turned to face him. Adrian, you have it backward. You gave me permission to choose myself. That's the greatest gift anyone's ever given me. Everything else, you and Lily and this life we're building, that's not a sacrifice. That's the reward. In June, Lily's school had its end-of-year celebration. Parents were invited to attend, and Adrian found himself sitting in a too-small chair in a decorated gymnasium, watching his daughter perform in a class play about the water cycle. Evelyn sat beside him, her hand in his, and when Lily delivered her lines as precipitation with dramatic flair, they both applauded enthusiastically. Afterward, Lily ran up to them, still wearing her raindrop costume. "Did you see me? Did you see my part?" "You were amazing," Evelyn said. "Best precipitation I've ever seen." "Were you the prettiest raindrop?" another parent asked, approaching them. It was Tyler Henderson's mother, her smile friendly but her eyes assessing. "Your daughter was wonderful, Mr. Blake, and you must be—" "Evelyn Hart," Evelyn said, extending her hand. "Adrian's partner." Adrian felt warmth spread through his chest at the easy way she claimed that title. Partner. Not girlfriend, not the woman across the hall, but partner. Equal. Family. Mrs. Henderson's smile tightened slightly. "How lovely." Tyler mentioned that Lily had talked about her father's friend. It's nice to put a face to the name. After she walked away, Evelyn squeezed Adrian's hand. "That was awkward." "Welcome to small-town school politics. Everyone knows everyone's business." "I don't care if people talk. Let them talk." And they did talk. Word spread through the school community that the single dad mechanic was dating someone, and depending on who was telling the story, Evelyn was either a successful businesswoman slumming it for authenticity or a gold digger after Adrian's. What exactly? His decade-old Honda and modest apartment? Adrian and Evelyn found the whole thing hilarious. "They think you're after my money," Adrian told her one evening. "Damn, they figured out my master plan. All that work for nothing. Should I be worried? Are you going to steal my car and run away to Mexico?" "Your car wouldn't make it to the Oregon border. I'd have to steal Marcus's truck instead." "That's fair." In July, on a warm evening that smelled like summer and possibility, Adrian proposed. It wasn't planned. They were at the park with Lily, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. Lily was on the swings, pumping her legs to go higher, and Evelyn was laughing at something Adrian had said, and suddenly he knew with absolute certainty that he wanted every evening to look like this. "Marry me," he said. Evelyn stopped laughing. "What?" "Marry me. I don't have a ring, and this probably isn't the romantic proposal you imagined, but I don't want to wait. I love you. Lily loves you. We want you permanently, officially, no more almost mom or partner. We want you to be family in every way that matters." Evelyn's eyes filled with tears. "Adrian, you don't have to answer now. Think about it. Take all the time you need." "Yes." "What?" "Yes, I'll marry you. I don't need time to think about it." She cupped his face with both hands, her scarred palms warm against his skin. "I've never been more certain of anything in my life." He kissed her there in the park while the sun set and Lily cheered from the swings, and Adrian felt like he'd finally found the thing he'd been searching for without knowing he was searching. Not perfection, not some fairy tale ending, but something real and solid and worth fighting for. That night after they'd told Lily, who immediately started planning the wedding with 6-year-old enthusiasm involving at least 100 flowers and a cake bigger than a car, Adrian and Evelyn sat on his couch in comfortable silence. "I need to tell you something," Evelyn said quietly. "Okay." "I'm scared. Not of marrying you. That's the one thing I'm not scared of. But I'm scared of being a mom. A real mom, not just the fun adult who helps with homework sometimes. What if I'm not good at it? What if I mess up?" Adrian took her hand. "You'll be good at it because you already are good at it. And yes, you'll mess up sometimes, because that's what parents do. I mess up constantly. But you show up, and you care, and you try. That's all any kid needs." What if she decides she wants a relationship with Jessica someday? What if I'm not enough? Then we'll handle it together. But Evelyn, Lily chose you. I chose you. We're choosing you every day, not because you're perfect, but because you're you. Scars and fears and all of it. You're exactly who we want. She was crying now, quiet tears that she didn't try to hide. I spent so long believing no one would stay, that I was too damaged, too complicated, too much. And here you are asking me to stay forever. Here I am. Here we are. And we're not going anywhere. The wedding happened in September, small and intimate in the backyard of a friend's house. Marcus served as best man, Patricia Chen as Evelyn's maid of honor. Lily was the flower girl and took her job with utmost seriousness, creating a precise path of petals down the makeshift aisle. Evelyn wore a simple white dress with sleeves that ended at her elbows, her scars visible for everyone to see. She'd debated covering them, but Adrian had kissed each scarred palm and told her she was beautiful exactly as she was. So she'd chosen visibility over hiding, chosen to own her story rather than apologize for it. When Adrian saw her walking toward him, his breath caught. She was radiant, not despite her scars, but including them, all of her history and pain and strength written on her skin for anyone who cared to look. They'd written their own vows. Adrian went first, his voice steady despite the emotion threatening to overwhelm him. Evelyn, you walked into my life disguised as a plumbing emergency, and you stayed because you chose to. You chose me when I'd given up on being chosen. You chose Lily when she needed someone to choose her. You taught me that love isn't about finding someone perfect. It's about finding someone willing to stay through all the imperfect parts. I promise to stay. Through every crisis and every ordinary Tuesday, through the hard conversations and the easy laughter. I promise to bring you coffee every morning and to always believe in you, even when you don't believe in yourself. I promise to be your partner, your friend, your family, forever. Evelyn's voice shook when she spoke, but her words were clear. Adrian, you saw my scars and called them beautiful. You saw my walls and chose to wait patiently outside them until I was ready to open the door. You gave me permission to choose myself, and in doing that, you gave me everything. I promise to stay. Through your doubts and your fears, through Lily's teenage years, she paused for laughter, through every moment that tests us, I promise to be present, to choose this life we're building over the one I thought I was supposed to want. I promise to love Lily like she's mine because she is mine and you are mine. And this family we've created is the greatest thing I've ever built. Forever. They exchanged rings, simple gold bands they'd chosen together. And when the officiant pronounced them married, they kissed while their small gathering of friends and family applauded. Lily rushed forward and hugged them both, creating a three-person embrace that felt like the truest representation of what they'd become. At the reception, Warren, the building manager, approached them with a sheepish expression. I owe you an apology, he said to Evelyn. When Adrian moved in, I told him no man ever stayed in your apartment. I was wrong, and I'm sorry for gossiping about your personal life. Evelyn smiled, her hand in Adrian's. You were right, actually. No man ever stayed in my apartment, but that's because I was waiting for the right man to show up across the hall instead. After the wedding, after the cake and dancing and celebration, Adrian and Evelyn and Lily went home to the Evergreen Apartments. They decided to combine households, turning Evelyn's apartment into Adrian's workspace and keeping his apartment as their main living space since Lily was already established there. That first night as a married couple, after Lily had been tucked into bed with extra stories to account for the excitement of the day, Adrian and Evelyn stood in their bedroom now, officially, and just looked at each other. We did it, Evelyn said. We did. I'm your wife. You are. How does it feel? She considered this. Safe? For the first time in longer than I can remember, I feel completely safe. Adrian pulled her close, breathing in the scent of her hair, feeling the steady beat of her heart against his chest. Good. You should feel safe. You are safe. We all are. They stood like that for a long moment, two people who'd been broken by different circumstances finding wholeness in each other. It wasn't magic and it wasn't perfect, but it was real. And real, Adrian had learned, was better than perfect any day. The months that followed brought the usual challenges of blending a family. Lily tested boundaries, wanting to know if Evelyn's presence was permanent or if she'd leave like Jessica had. Evelyn struggled with the loss of her independent space, with the constant noise and mess that came with a child. Adrian navigated the space between them, reassuring Lily and giving Evelyn room to breathe when she needed it. But they worked through it. They established routines and rituals. Friday movie nights, Sunday morning pancakes, bedtime stories that Evelyn and Adrian took turns reading, small traditions that became the foundation of their family. In December, nearly a year after that first coffee delivery, they gathered around their small Christmas tree while Lily opened presents with characteristic enthusiasm. She'd asked for art supplies and books and maybe a hamster, but probably not because Daddy said there were a lot of responsibility. After the wrapping paper had been cleared away and Lily was absorbed in a new coloring book, Evelyn handed Adrian an envelope. "What's this?" "Open it." Inside was a document from Metasink's legal department. Adrian scanned it, confused at first, then stunned as he understood what he was reading. "You're stepping down as CEO, effective January 1st. James will take over, and I'll stay on as Chief Innovation Officer. Reduced hours, reduced stress, more time for what actually matters." She took his hand. "More time for this. For us." "Evelyn, are you sure? That company is your life's work." "No," she said firmly. "That company is something I built. This," she gestured to the apartment, to Lily, to Adrian. "This is my life's work now. And I don't want to miss it because I'm too busy chasing something that stopped fulfilling me a long time ago." Adrian pulled her into his arms, overwhelmed by gratitude and love and the sheer courage it took to walk away from something you'd spent 10 years building. "I'm so proud of you." "I'm proud of me too, for the first time in a very long time." That evening, after Lily was asleep, Adrian and Evelyn sat together in the quiet darkness of their living room. The Christmas tree lights cast soft shadows across the walls, and outside, Portland rain created its familiar percussion against the windows. "Do you ever think about that first day?" Evelyn asked, "when Warren warned you about me?" "All the time. He said no man ever stays. He was so sure of it." "What made you different?" Adrian thought about it. "I don't think I was different. I think the circumstances were. You were ready to let someone in, and I was ready to try again. And maybe that's all it takes. Two people willing to be brave at the same time. I'm glad we were brave." "Me too." She shifted closer, her head resting on his shoulder. "Adrian, thank you for seeing past the CEO to the person underneath. Thank you for making me believe I was worth staying for. You were always worth staying for. I just had the good sense to recognize it." They sat in comfortable silence, two people who'd found each other across a hallway and built something neither had known they needed. It wasn't the ending either of them had imagined. Adrian hadn't pictured himself married to a former CEO, and Evelyn hadn't pictured herself as a stepmother to a 7-year-old with strong opinions about everything. But it was better than anything they could have planned. It was messy and real and full of the kind of ordinary magic that came from choosing each other every single day. In the apartment across the hall, the one that had once belonged to a woman people whispered about, the one where no man ever stayed, boxes were stacked and ready for donation. The space would be repurposed, transformed into something new. Because that's what they'd all done, really. They'd taken their broken pieces and transformed them into something new, something whole, something worth staying for. And stay they did. Every morning brought coffee and conversation. Every evening brought dinner and laughter and the comfortable chaos of family life. Every day brought challenges and joys and all the small moments that made up a life worth living. Warren saw them sometimes in the hallway, the three of them together, and he'd smile knowingly. He'd been wrong, he'd tell people. Sometimes the right man does stay. Sometimes love is strong enough to overcome history and fear and all the reasons people build walls around their hearts. Sometimes the quiet mechanic with the gentle hands and the willingness to wait is exactly what a wounded heart needs to heal. And sometimes the woman who saved someone from a fire only to be abandoned finds salvation in being saved herself, not by grand gestures or dramatic rescue, but by simple, steady presence. By someone who shows up with coffee every morning and says, through actions rather than words, "You are worth staying for." The scars remained, of course, both Evelyn's physical ones and the emotional ones they all carried. But scars, they learned, weren't signs of brokenness. They were evidence of survival. Proof that you'd lived through something hard and come out the other side. And in the end, that was all any of them needed to know. That they'd survived their separate hells and found each other anyway. That they'd chosen to stay when leaving would have been easier. That love, real, complicated, imperfect love, was worth every risk they'd taken to find it. In the quiet Portland apartment that had once housed so much loneliness, A family lived and laughed and loved. They built traditions and made memories and proved that sometimes the best stories don't have perfect beginnings. Sometimes they start with a broken pipe and a warning from a building manager who didn't know what he was talking about. Sometimes they start with two broken people willing to be brave enough to try again. And sometimes, just sometimes, those stories end with forever.